there is another trade that is still very much so alive. Brandon Aiyuk, a name that every time we mention him at this point, everything falls off. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore. I get it. I 100% get it. I think the Brandon Aiyuk thing, it's been fun. We've hit a point where it's okay. This is getting a little bit too much. Is it actually going to happen? Well, as early as yesterday, or as late as yesterday, everybody keeps talking about Brandon Aiyuk being a possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're reportedly have a trade package in place that they're willing to send to San Francisco. They're just waiting for San Francisco to be open to a trade. People are talking a first-round pick for the 49ers. The San Francisco Chronicle said that that's what they're looking to get in a trade for Brandon Aiyuk. And then, I mean, people have tossed out there a 2025 first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. You look at either one of those options. Are either one of them a likely possibility, especially for a guy that, I mean, reports are saying wants north of $25 million a season, which is no surprise. If anything, that's a low ball number compared to what I had in mind for Brandon Aiyuk. Are you comfortable, or do you think it's a real possibility the Steelers give up either of those first-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk?
I think they are possibilities, and I don't know. I don't think it's that bad of an idea. I'm trying not to talk out of both sides of my mouth because I know we just got done talking about how a corner or a receiver really isn't worth trading up for. But I don't know. I just look at it as if, well, first of all, 2025 is not real to me right now.
Yeah, agreed.
It's like I don't care about that, to be quite honest. Like, I think you put Brandon Aiyuk on this team and you have a Super Bowl contender. So I'm not worried about that at all. So if you want to give up a 2025 first round pick, by all means. I'm all for it. That's perfectly fine on my end. I would go for it. As far as this year's first round pick, like, the reason I'm not all the way out on it is because Brandon Aiyuk is more, and I get it, you're only getting him for 1 year, but he would be the surest thing in this draft. If he was available to be picked in this draft, he would go what? I mean, he might not go before
2.
Caleb. Yeah, he wouldn't go before Caleb Williams, but he would be the first wide receiver taken off the board. He'd be a top 3 or 4 pick. So and again, he is the surest. He would be the surest thing in his draft. He'd be a guy who has already been there and done that at the NFL level. No one else in the draft can say that, just by nature. So to that extent, for a team that needs a receiver and according to some, needs a number 1 receiver. Some people don't really have a ton of faith in George Pickens right now. I feel like you'd absolutely be willing to use pick number 20 and I think that's how you got to view it, like, stop looking at the money that you hypothetically have to pay him in the future, and just look at what you're giving up to get a guy who can be your number 1 receiver right away in a massive year where you're already, I mean, the Steelers made the statement, I think, when they, with their offseason and with their free agent signings, that we're going to be aggressive. We're all in on this year. We think we can win this year. So to that extent, I don't know why you would look any further than this year and think any more about, a first round pick or not, for a guy who can elevate your roster in such a significant way.
I don't disagree. I think if you're talking next year, easy money. I'm making that move. Don't care especially if you win a Super Bowl. Like, if you're hunting for a Super Bowl, that pick is 32. Nobody cares anyways. Chances are you're going to trade it no matter what. This year, I think, depending on who's on the clock and when the trade is made, if I'm, like, just to break it down, like, my thoughts here, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the most likely possibility when it comes to a Brandon Aiyuk trade is, if we're going during the NFL draft, is like when the Steelers are just about to be on the clock, that phone rings. Now things are in motion. And, people have talked about the pressure of, I think it was Ari Mirov who said the pressure of the NFL draft could force a Brandon Aiyuk trade. I think that's a real possibility. Like, if the 49ers view it and just say, look, there are so many wide receivers here in the first round, why not just get rid of them and take the best value we could to keep this team where we want it to be right now? Because I think that's the danger of the 49ers if you go past the NFL draft, is you get rid of Brandon Aiyuk in July, you don't have anybody to replace him. Like, you didn't replace him in the NFL draft. So I think that's a real possibility. If you're the Steelers, depending on who's on the board, I think that it could happen. A first round pick, I mean, I don't think you're getting them for for less during the draft. I think if it was before the draft, you could have convinced them into a second round pick. Now that it's Wednesday, there's no chance that's going for anything less than a first round pick. When it comes to value, I mean, I agree with you. I think he's the best player in the draft. And I think that, you immediately make yourself a Super Bowl contender with Brandon Aiyuk. And I don't think anybody would be opposed to that. You look at it long term, it could work out if you think Justin Fields is going to sign for cheap on a couple-year deal, or if you think that next year you're going to go get your quarterback and, okay, that sounds good. You don't have to pay anybody. I don't know what it means for Pat Freiermuth. I don't know what it means for Cam Hayward. I don't know what it means for George Pickens or Najee Harris or any of those guys, because now you're paying a wide receiver $25 million. I mean, I don't know. I think there are a lot of questions that come with it. Could it happen? Yes. I mean, I definitely could happen with that 20th pick. What do you think the likelihood it does?
I'd say pretty low, to be quite honest. The 49ers don't seem very interested in this at all. Like, it seemed to be the Steelers who are driving the conversation. And I don't know, maybe John Lynch is putting on a smokescreen, but I don't know. I think Aiyuk is going to force this. If it does happen, it's going to be because he's not willing to re-sign in for anything in San Francisco. He feels slighted by the process or something like that. I guess it's also true that this could drag out past the draft and into the summer. But as far as whether or not it happens on draft day, I'd say it seems pretty unlikely in my book.
I agree. I don't think it's a likely possibility. I still hold out that it'll happen later in the summer when they truly, just like you said, when it hits a point where the 49ers have given up on trying to re-sign Brandon Aiyuk, that is when he will be dealt. I don't think they've given up on him just yet. I think that they still feel that this is a Super Bowl team and they'd like him around as a Super Bowl or as a piece of that puzzle in 2024. I just don't. The draft is just unlikely to me. It could happen, but I would say I give higher stock in the Steelers trading up for a guy like Quinyon Mitchell than Brandon Aiyuk trade. And I think both of them are pretty next to nothing right now, because if I had to guess, they're sitting at 20 and they're going to just pick somebody at pick number 20.